everyone, and welcome to another edition of LeaderTalk with Nasscom Insights. I'm Ketaki Karnik, Head of Research and Insights at Nasscom, and I'm delighted to be hosting this discussion. Over the last few years, we've talked a lot about AI as a productivity tool. Chatbots, co-pilots, recommendation engines, and the like. Today, we take this conversation a step further into the world of intelligent workforce, a world where we move beyond standalone AI tools to agentic AI. All this orchestrated by perhaps the world's most valuable resource, data. In today's podcast, we'll explore the evolution of intelligent workforce, the critical role of AI data, cloud, and how India is positioned to lead this transition globally. To help decode this shift, I'm delighted to be joined today by a leader who pretty much sits at the very center of all this, Vijayant Rai, Managing Director for India at Snowflake. Vijayant is a veteran of the tech industry with over 27 years of experience leading transformation at global giants like Microsoft, Salesforce, SAP, CA Technologies. Since taking the helm at Snowflake India in early 2024, he has been instrumental in driving the adoption of Snowflake AI Data Cloud across sectors, from BFSI to retail to the public sector and India's booming startup ecosystem. Vijayant, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here with us on LeaderTalk.
Thanks, Ketaki. It's wonderful to be here with you today afternoon. Thanks for having me.
As we look ahead to 2026, how do you see enterprises adopting agentic AI to build a more intelligent workforce? In your view, is this transformation already taking shape, or is it still largely expectation and hype?
So, Ketaki, I think we've come a very long way in a very short period of time. I mean, just the changes we've seen in the past 3 years, or since generative AI came to the fore, they've just been completely profound and something unprecedented. I mean, and it's right across different sectors of the industry. If you look at the traditional enterprises, obviously we are seeing them evolving and getting into that space. They're moving from, for example, testing POCs to now getting into production. When you look at sectors like the digital natives, they had the advantage of already being on the cloud, so which meant that they had most things covered in terms of data estates, availability of different technologies to work on. So we saw that the adoption there has been obviously very, very fast. So if you look at 2026 and where we are now, right in the beginning of 2026, I would say we are in a phase where you're seeing fairly large scale production use cases coming through with AI and agentic AI. I mean, very clearly we work with a very large set of customers here in India. And we have worked with them through this cycle in the past couple of years, where they started initially, trying to figure out what to do with AI. How do they actually start, creating their own set of assets? How do they look at use cases? How do they create a team which can work on these projects, etc. So now, basically getting to a stage where they've done POCs, they're taking a lot of them to production. It is a learning curve. I mean, to be honest, traditional enterprises also have a lot of legacy to contend with. So, it's sort of an evolutionary journey. And we're seeing that some sectors, probably are much faster in the journey compared to others. But there's no denying pretty much everybody is on this journey. They are looking at how can you actually get more out of AI. Essentially looking at productivity increases initially to start looking at business outcomes and how you could influence those, or absolutely new use cases for different parts of their business, maybe for employee experience, customer experience, or for risk management in case of certain industries. So we're seeing use cases pretty much right across. And the important thing though is when you look at enterprises, they're also evolving in a sense.
So let me double click on something you said, Vijay, which is that, the adoption has been uneven across sectors and across organizations. So what are the challenges that some of these either slow or cautious adopters face as they're looking to enter the agentic AI?
Sure. I think one of the biggest challenges still remains is, Ketaki, the siloed nature of data itself, right? In most enterprises, these organizations have evolved over a period of time. There's different applications, different systems they're bought in for different, use cases and outcomes. What that also means is that you're creating a lot of silos. And you have data lying in different places in different formats which doesn't talk to each other. So simple use case of creating, say, a customer 360, might require you to bring in, data from probably 20, 30 different systems, which itself is a challenge. So data as a silo, data being in different fragmented places is a big challenge. The ability to, bring in data from different types. For example, how do you marry unstructured data with structured data, semi-structured data, bring it all together, and then get value out of it? That remains a big challenge from a technology perspective. And that is where organizations like Snowflake actually come in, where we provide a managed data platform where organizations can break their data silos, bring it all in, and then look at outcomes for analytics and AI, etc. That's one big challenge. The second big challenge when you look at AI adoption is also governance and security. It's talked about, you keep hearing on a daily basis different things which happen with AI. AI is not only available to enterprises, it's available to bad actors as well. So you can imagine it's something which has to be contended with when you're working in an enterprise. For example, if you're a bank, you're basically working with people and their trust. So it's so important to make sure that when you're creating something on AI, it has to be trusted, it has to be governed, it has to be secure. And that becomes a very important criteria. So the important thing is that it has to be part of the design, which organizations are now creating, where as you bring in more and more AI, you also have to make sure that you have the right measure of governance, security, frameworks in place so that you can scale this. But also, most importantly, whatever outputs you give, are trusted by your customers or the customer's customer in that sense. So security governance becomes a big, sort of area to contend with, as people try and power into, AI and scale there. The third piece is skilling. It's such a fast changing landscape. Keeping up with the latest in AI, keeping up with the latest in data, for example, takes quite a bit. I mean, so important to make sure that you're upskilling, say, existing workforces in enterprises. You're making sure that they have access to the latest tools, so that they're exposed to whatever is happening in the space of AI and so on and so forth. So skilling is such an important aspect there. And I think the most important aspect is culture. Especially when you look at traditional organizations, there's a lot of things which are happening. There's a culture which has evolved over years, in cases decades. How do you actually make sure that that culture now incorporates AI or AI first thinking, as they go ahead? So extremely important that it's top down. There is AI sort of education at every level of management within organizations, so that people understand, what does it take to bring in AI? What does it take to sort of inculcate that? What does it take to then get business outcomes? So culture plays a very important part in this piece as well. So, and that also brings us back to the point which we talked earlier, that different organizations are in different stages of evolution, because these are the 3-4 things you got to tackle. You got to look at your security, governance, and those aspects. You got to look at the skilling aspect. You got to look at the culture aspect as well. So as you frame AI into organizations, we are seeing some organizations doing that really well. They're moving ahead, and they're sort of coming out very quickly with AI pipelines and sort of AI solutions out there. We see organizations which are evolving and getting better, with every passing day. So it's those are some of the challenges as Snowflake, which we encounter sort of on a daily basis. The other piece I would say is also the pace, and the pace of change is so quick. It requires so almost a reset in the way most organizations work, and the flexibility they require to sort of take advantage of change and the pace at which change is happening, so that you can get the most out of it. So these are some of the aspects we believe organizations need to be across if they need to get the most out of AI.
Let me focus on the last two challenges that you mentioned and broaden that to say, really, at heart, any change is about the human element, right? And especially in the case of agentic AI, because there is also this very real fear about job displacement. So from your conversations with enterprise leaders, how are they really preparing their workforce for this new sort of reality, for being able to work alongside agents?
That conversation always, comes up. We have leaders in customers we work with who are sort of dealing with it on a daily basis. What's the best way to, upskill their own organization so that they're comfortable with AI, they're comfortable with the tools, they're comfortable with the change which is happening. In my mind, when you look at AI, it's more about organizations and employees, for example, sort of doubling down on their domain. AI won't replace domain knowledge. AI won't replace critical thinking. AI will not replace strategic context which a particular professional brings in. It'll only enhance that. So, I mean, I think many times people get a little worried, I would think, on these counts. But the fact is that AI is very good with logic. It's very good with, volumes to deal with, etc. But the empathy side of things, the context side of things, that has to come from humans. The strategy side of things has to come from critical thinking. So that is one area we profess to all our customers we work with, whomsoever we are advising on their transformation journey for data and AI, is that look at how you can actually reinforce that with your employees. That if you are a banker, you know more about what's happening in banking, how to build trust with your customer, where things can go wrong than AI would. You probably will use AI to now help you do that faster at scale and focus on your core domain versus trying to become a coder, for example, right? So in my mind, AI is very good with the how and why and those aspects, but the critical thinking, the questioning of it, making sure that it is governed, secured, that's a continuous process. All of that comes from the employees out there. So there's a massive opportunity for employees to sort of force multiply their domain knowledge, what they're working on, get better on those aspects, and basically use AI to sort of enhance their work and those aspects there. So that's what we think is happening. That's what we're seeing in a lot of companies where people have adopted AI. In the right measure, they're using their domain expertise and those aspects along with AI, and they're able to move very, very fast. Because AI essentially is good at certain things, but it still requires a human in the loop to take all advantage of it.
So, in a way, you've sort of answered the next question, which I was going to come to, which is, I wanted us to jump to the other side of the table and now look at it not from an organization perspective, but from an individual perspective. So, most of our viewers are technology professionals who are actually living through this agentic AI transition, right? So what is, any additional advice for them? How can they continue to stay relevant? What are the skills, or importantly, I think the mindsets that they need to build to really succeed in this world?
Great question, Ketaki. And it's a real thing. We're all living. We are an IT company. All of my colleagues are engineers, data scientists, etc., who are working with customers, and that's a reality we are dealing with. So you have these amazing tools which are coming in, which are sort of really pushing the boundaries of productivity and so on and so forth. And then you're looking at relevance. As to how does the person, and like all of us, we want to get better, we want to do better and move upwards, etc. How does that happen, in this context? And what we believe is that if you look at AI as a multiplier, it's all there. I'll give you an example of Snowflake internally, right? I mean, we have been sort of incorporating these tools for the past about a year and a half at scale. The big thing we've seen is that it's actually helping. One, the adoption happens very fast. So we have created very specific generative AI tools for, say, our sales team, for our pre-sales team, etc. It's just helping them get better with it. So their core remains. They understand the domain, but this actually helps them get more productive. Today we have something like 8,000 plus employees globally in Snowflake. The adoption of our internal tool, Snowflake Intelligence, which we use for sales, is more than 6,000. So you can imagine, and this all happened in the past, few quarters itself. So the pace of adoption, the usability of the technology, there's no doubt about it. For tech folks, it's best that they look at these technologies and very quickly adopt to it. The best thing is it's not very difficult to adopt. I mean, unlike the earlier times when you actually had to go really deep and I'm an engineer by training, so I've done C++ and this and that. And believe me, it was tough learning all of that stuff. When I look at, say, working today with Cortex, which is our framework for AI, generative AI, and all that, even I can do it. So, I believe what it's doing is it's basically, giving more power to the technical folks. What I would definitely advise them to do is look at customer impact and how could they deliver that, for benefit of the customer. If you understand that piece, the relevance comes in, because you're delivering value there. If we know that for an XYZ customer we work with, we are taking their business from point A to point B to further up, and is giving impact, and I am the person who's actually, doing that technical transformation along with the customer, it takes me ahead. So I would think, a lot of our technical colleagues in system integration companies, et cetera, who work with us today, they are upskilling their workforce on, say, Snowflake and all the other platforms out there, essentially to help them make sure that they can deliver value to their customer. As you're delivering value to the customer, believe me, their relevance goes up, right? But very important to not be in a singular, I would say, mind frame. So important to have a learning mindset that we continue to sort of learn and grow. In today's time, more than ever, and that's absolutely important. Sort of a growth mindset, as we call it. So staying curious to the changes which are happening in the tech world, inculcating that as soon as you can, and then trying to bear impact for your stakeholders, may it be internal or external. The relevance just increases, and that's true for all of us, honestly.
Thanks. It's really sort of good practical advice. So thanks for that. Let's maybe shift gears and zoom out in a way and talk more about an organization's contribution to the sort of larger good. So let's talk about, for instance, Viksit Bharat, a vision which would require, not just advanced AI capabilities, but also a skill force to go along with that. From where your vantage, what role should data and AI platform providers like Snowflake play in enabling this, both in accelerating enterprise adoption as well as strengthening India's digital talent ecosystem?
When I look at India, I'm absolutely excited with the prospects we have and what, for example, data and AI can do in terms of interventions, in India. When you look at the country, we are one of the fastest growing economies in the world, growing at close to 7% this year, apparently, and this will continue at scale. When you look closely, I think India also is fast becoming a data-driven economy. When you look at the interventions around UPI, the India Stack, Aadhaar, and all the large-scale citizen, systems which have come in, they're massively driven by data. So we're already an economy which is sort of leapfrogging at the back of technology innovations which have happened. We've done that in the past. I mean, you look at the internet, you look at the mobile revolution. India has just sort of taken off, and gone to a different realm in terms of transformations which you've seen here. In my mind, AI will be the same. It's like what we saw with UPI. Just think of AI for healthcare, for education, for citizen services, and what it could do for a country of our scale. So AI is in my mind something which can help us solve a lot of challenges we have at our scale. As we go here. Having said that, Snowflake itself, and we are absolutely committed to be part of this journey, of Viksit Bharat. When we look at Viksit Bharat, our partnership with Nasscom, for example, to skill more than 100,000, folks over the next couple of years on data and AI, because that's going to be an absolutely essential skill set needed for India's workforce to scale to the next level. And our partnership with the ICT Academy for Train the Trainer, I think 1,000 plus is what we are, or what the endeavor is in the short term, view as well. So a lot of focus on scaling, a lot of focus on working with India and building, basically solutions from India as well. So we have one of the largest partner ecosystems based in India. And with this partner ecosystem, both folks who are, say, system integrators who deploy our technology for different industries, financial services, manufacturing services, etc., to ISV partners who actually build their solutions on Snowflake and take it to the world. So we are very excited. We believe that as India grows to the next level, Snowflake has an important role to play here in terms of of course being an unparalleled AI data cloud, where we can help provide very secure, governed solutions for AI to sort of scale at any level, to essentially making sure that as more and more data gets generated, it's stored, governed in a platform which has absolutely no limits and helps customers get the business outcomes they're looking for.
Thanks very much, Vijayant, for all those insights. I think what really stood out for me was that intelligent workforce isn't just a technology story. It's about data, it's about governance and security, but most of all, it is a human story. It's about talent and building that. And that would really be critical as India seeks to become a digital-first economy. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you here on Leader Talk.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ketaki. Thanks for having me.
Thanks again, Vijay. And to our audience, thank you for tuning into this session of Nasscom Insights Leader Talk. We hope you found the discussion useful. Do follow Nasscom Insights on LinkedIn, X, and YouTube for more such deep dives into technologies and leaders shaping the future. We'll be back with more insights soon. But till then, it's goodbye from all of us here at Nasscom Insights.